Well, after an incredible start to last week in which the Bulls had that amazing comeback win against the Celtics when it appeared the Bulls were going to be getting blown out and then outscored them 39-11 in the fourth, it seemed that was going to give the Bulls enough confidence going into their toughest stretch of schedule yet, but the Bulls fell in back-to-back games against a shorthanded Sixers team, which was frustrating to see after such a strong start, but it's on to the next, and in this upcoming week, it isn't going to get any easier with some tough games ahead, which is what we'll be reviewing in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. The Bulls have 4 games this week, a packed week in which they will be playing a game every other day, and they'll be starting a long West Coast trip starting on Friday. The Bulls kick off this week of games against the Brooklyn Nets tonight at home, and then they'll host Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks on Wednesday before they head to the Bay Area to take on the Warriors, which I'm personally really excited about as I will be at that game. And then finally they close out the week against the Clippers in LA on Sunday, and they'll actually be playing in a back-to-back where they'll be taking on the Lakers the following day, but since that's next Monday, we'll go over that game in next week's weekly preview. So let's start with tonight's game against the Nets. Tonight's game will be on NBA TV. The Nets have had an interesting start to their season. Of course, the drama surrounding Kyrie Irving has been a pretty big distraction for them, and as a result of him choosing not to get vaccinated, he still remains out for the season. But even without Kyrie, this is really a strong team with the star power of Kevin Durant and James Harden. And actually, LaMarcus Aldridge has been very surprising to them in terms of his strong performance off the bench. He's been playing better than guys like Blake Griffin and Paul Millsap. And of course, the Nets have strong shooters in guys like Joe Harris and Patty Mills. And after an okay start in which the Nets started off the season 2-3, they are now on a roll, having won their last 5 in a row. Although, in that 5-game winning streak, they've played some pretty easy teams outside of the Atlanta Hawks. So the Bulls will really be a bigger challenge for them than what they have faced most recently. And the other advantage the Bulls have is that the Nets just played last night, and a back-to-back on a traveling night should mean that the Bulls could come out with strong energy, which let's hope that they do. It's been a problem recently, and you'd have to think that the Nets are going to be a little tired, a little lethargic after having traveled from Toronto last night. But that doesn't mean the Bulls should be taking this team lightly at all. They have arguably one of the best players in the league who is on a mission this season in Kevin Durant, and although the Nets not the best defensive team in the league, they are an elite offensive team in terms of their net rating and their ability to score in a hurry. That being said, though, they haven't been as impressive as I think people thought that they would be, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Harden hasn't been getting the calls he's used to getting his whole career with the new league foul rules. Now, some keys to this game for the Bulls. I mean, they need to take advantage of the fact that the Nets don't really have a true center. Don't get me wrong, the Nets are considerably better than the Bulls in terms of size overall. If anything, the Nets are kind of the opposite in the sense that they are crowded in the front court with Kevin Durant, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, and Paul Millsap, all the power forward spots, whereas the Bulls are short in the front court and a bit crowded in the back court. But the Nets don't have a big man that can match in terms of size and build against a guy like Vucevic or Tony Bradley. Now, we've been talking about Vucevic and his struggles to the start of the season, but this has to be a game where Vucevic steps up and has an all-star level performance that we've seen him do and play so many times last season. No excuses. We need to see him being more aggressive on offense, posting up down low. He's been settling way too much for outside shots, playing at the top of the key, which I get. Part of that is coaching and the offensive system Billy Donovan wants to run, but in a game like this, you need to be running the offense in the post for Vucevic. Get the easy scoring inside when you have the height advantage and crash the boards on the offensive end to give the Bulls more second chance opportunities. And then finally, the other key is locking down Kevin Durant. Normally, I would say you also need to lock down James Harden, which it still applies, don't get me wrong, but when you have someone like Lonzo on Harden and even Alex Caruso, you should be able to keep Harden at least to an extent at bay that he's not going to be able to put up over 30 points in a game. He's still going to get his because he's James Harden, but with Lonzo and Caruso, they should be able to manage and limit the outside shooting from Harden and dribble drive penetration that he is so good at. The guy I'm worried about is Kevin Durant, because without Patrick Williams, the Bulls don't really have an answer for him, and even with Patrick Williams, they don't have an answer for him. And you could really say that about a lot of teams. Kevin Durant is just that type of player that you're never going to be able to guard well. But the Bulls, especially with their limited size and defense, especially in the starting lineup, the Nets are going to run the majority of their offense through Durant and take advantage of the mismatch. I personally think it would make the most sense to start Derrick Jones Jr. over Javonte Green, just because even though Jones Jr. can't match up in terms of size against KD, the difference is Derrick Jones Jr. just has the length and wingspan to at least disrupt Kevin Durant in some of his shots and dribble penetration into the paint. It's still not going to be great. KD is going to be making it a long night for the Bulls either way, but if the Bulls can at least improve their offense to where Lavine and DeRozan are able to outscore and outshoot the Nets, then the Bulls can make it a competitive game and try and walk away with the win. Then the Bulls will take on the Mavericks on Wednesday, and historically the Bulls have always matched up pretty well against the Mavs. Last season they actually swept Dallas. However, this is a different team, different Bulls team anyway. This is going to be a big game for Lonzo on the defensive end and guarding one of the best offensive players in the league in Luka Doncic. Lonzo's primary focus in this game is being all over Doncic, staying with him on the perimeter, running through screens, staying with him on drives to the basket and deflecting his passes, as Doncic is also an incredible playmaker. This is another game in which the Bulls don't match up well in terms of size against the Mavs, a team that is crowded in the front court with Porzingis, Finney Smith, Dwight Powell, Boban, Maxi Kleber, Willie Cauley-Stein, Moses Brown. Like, this is a massive team. And of course, we all know where the Bulls lack, and that is size. And that's really going to be their biggest challenge in this one. I mean, outside of locking down Doncic, of course, but the Mavs also are 6-3 at the time of this recording and are a strong rebounding team. They have great rim protection. Honestly, where they do lack is scoring so far this year, currently 25th in the league in points per game. So this is another opportunity for the Bulls to simply outscore their opponent. I've actually been thinking about this a lot. And I love the fact that this Bulls team has been strong on the defensive end, and they hustle, and the energy on the defensive end is incredible. But does it make sense against some of these poor offensive teams, which I'm not saying the Mavs are? I think they've really just gotten off to a slow start. But against poor offensive teams, is it worth sacrificing marginal effort on defense in favor of focusing maximum effort and efficiency on offense when you know a lot of guys on the opposing teams aren't going to be the best scorers? I'm not a coach, obviously, and that could prove to be a horrible idea, but just something to think about. And on Friday, the Bulls will be taking on the Golden State Warriors in San Francisco, and this game I am incredibly excited for because not only are the Warriors a good team, the game will be televised on ESPN, but also because I will be at the game in person. The first game that I have been able to see the Bulls since 2019, back when Jim Boylan was still running the team. Yeah. So for those that don't know, I currently live in the Bay Area. I go to see the Bulls play every season that they come to town, and because of COVID last season, I wasn't able to catch any games. So for this game, I will not be having a live game chat since I won't be able to host it, and I likely won't have a post-game video out on it until the following day, as I'll be getting home from the game pretty late in the evening. That being said, I will have some kind of vlog on the game and will be updating my Instagram story throughout it. So if you want to follow along, make sure you're following me on Instagram. The link to that is in the description. But either way, I actually think this is going to be one of the easier games for the Bulls on this road trip anyway. And hear me out, because yes, I know the Warriors are one of the best teams in the league right now at 8-1. But if you look at their schedule, they really haven't played many meaningful games. Yes, they beat the Clippers and the Lakers to start off the season, which was impressive, but even those teams have struggled in their own right. They played the Kings, the Thunder twice, the Pelicans, and the Rockets. All of these teams are some of the worst in the league. Don't get me wrong, the Warriors are still a good team, and they're going to be even more formidable when Klay Thompson comes back, but I actually think the Warriors won't match up well against the Bulls. Like the Bulls, the Warriors have to play small, which works for them because they have arguably the greatest shooter of all time, but the Bulls also have some of the best perimeter defenders in the league in Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso, who have the ability to double team Curry on most possessions. Yes, I imagine Caruso is going to be getting a lot of minutes in this game with Lonzo. And unlike some of these other teams that we've talked about, the Bulls don't have to worry about a strong interior presence from the Warriors, since, really size mismatches aren't going to be an issue in this game when Kevin Looney, their starting center, isn't even as good as our backup center in Tony Bradley. Draymond Green, obviously is still an incredible defender. He's an undersized 4, but he's not the player that he used to be, especially on offense. Andrew Wiggins is no matchup for DeMar DeRozan when you compare their offensive abilities. Jordan Poole has been a great player for them, and I've been really impressed with how Steve Kerr has been able to develop him into being a quality starter in the NBA. But again, he can't touch Zach LaVine when it comes to their talent side by side. And then if you look at the Warriors bench, like the Bulls, they struggle to generate offense with guys like Bulls legend and Otto Porter Jr., Bjelica, Iguodala, Gary Payton II. Again, I'm not saying the Warriors are a bad team, but their record is deceptive in terms of the quality of teams that they have faced. And I just don't think they match up well against a team like the Bulls, who have strong perimeter defenders, strong scorers, the 2 and 3, and hopefully guys like Vucevic will be able to feast against a smaller ball lineup. but we'll see. We've kind of been saying that every week so far about Vucevic. Then finally, the Bulls will close out their week on Sunday in LA against the Clippers, and the Clippers have been kind of struggling. They're currently 4-5. Obviously, they have been without their star player in Kawhi Leonard, but Paul George has been playing incredibly well for them as their team leader, really being the best two-way player in the league thus far when you look at what he's been able to do on offense, averaging near 28 points per game, 8 rebounds and 5 assists, and then his defense has still been one of the best in the league. But outside of that, I mean, they have some nice pieces, but without Kawhi, this isn't a title contending team. And again, when it comes to straight matchups between the Clippers and the Bulls fare pretty well, and that the Clippers don't have a ton of size. And outside of Paul George, they aren't that great on offense either, so the Bulls can easily win in a shootout. Everything else aside, but again, it's not a team you want to take lightly because they are still the Clippers, a good Western Conference team, and you're facing them on the road. But it's an important one for the Bulls to win in that it'll be the first game of a back-to-back, and the last thing you want to do is lose a game and then have to play the following day against another strong team. So as far as my always bad predictions for the week, and yes, I'm still sticking on the optimistic side because that's what I do as a diehard Bulls fan, but I actually do think the Bulls will go 3-1 this week, losing only against the Nets. I think the Bulls are in a bit of a slump after losing back-to-back games, and they're going to be playing one of the better teams in the league. And in a way, I think a loss tonight will light a fire under the Bulls to come out with tenacity and focus going into this road trip by finishing off their last home game, beating the Mavs, and then coming into Chase Center and taking out the Warriors, exposing their cupcake schedule that they've faced thus far, locking down Curry and kickstarting the road trip with a win, and then finally taking out the Warriors to close out the week. That's my prediction for the week, but I want to hear how you guys think the Bulls will do for this week of games. Of course, I'll have a live game chat for each of these with the exception of the game against the Warriors, as I will be at the event. And in the meantime, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.